Rose. I'm a Denver native, and I am a massage therapist and a mother and a horseback rider. Prior to the Wellness Way, I was feeling pretty bad. I ended up coming back from a trip in Morocco, and actually really before that I had 2 flus consecutively 2 years in a row, and I think it really bottomed out my immune system. So when I came back from Morocco, I started looking for help with mostly feeling really tired and joint pain and digestion, and I just knew something was wrong with my body. And later I found out that I had some cardiology issues going on as well, sort of during the time of the Wellness Way. So I went through all of that with the digestion and with the energy level and all of these things, and I ended up feeling a little bit better. Like, I stopped napping all the time. When I took out gluten, I thought I maybe had a thyroid problem. So I kind of did some things to go around that. I ran into a person who told me that I maybe had Hashimoto's, so I Pinterest Hashimoto's and find a bunch of things to do for that. But then later in the summer, we had a shocking event in my family. My sister ended up having a stroke, and when she had this stroke, she ended up fine, no residuals or anything, but we found out that she ended up having an underlying cardiac issue. She basically has an advanced cardiomyopathy, which caused a heart attack and a stroke to happen at the same time, and she's 33 years old. So it was pretty shocking for all of us. I think at that time I went through a lot of stress. Like, my sister and I are 11 months apart. We're Irish twins, so pretty much everything that happens to her, it sort of feels like it happens to me. So I ended up having 2 panic attacks during that time. Went to the emergency room. All of those old symptoms that sort of happened before I stopped eating gluten, before I did all these things, those started coming back. And then I started having a little bit of racing heart, a lot of stress. My blood pressure dropped super low. Half of my face went numb for an entire month. In one of those emergency room visits, ended up finding out that I also had a depressed cardiac capacity, so also had a little bit of an enlarged heart and basically the ejection fraction of someone who has had a heart attack. So I was a perfect mess when I came into the Wellness Way. I found out about the Wellness Way and Dr. Jacqueline through a friend a close friend who ended up sending some of her family members over here and had some good success. And I kind of knew that I wanted to find somebody who was going to really look at what was going on in my body and run tests that were specific. As a massage therapist, I treat everything from a whole system point of view. So going to some of my doctors, when they would kind of chop me up into my heart or my hormones or these individual pieces and parts of me, I started to feel like that didn't make sense because I know from doing what I do for a living that something that could be giving you a headache could be in your feet. So for them to kind of compartmentalize this problem didn't make sense, and I was looking for somebody to put the pieces together. The symptoms that I had ahead of time were trashing my daily life. I have a really physical job, and I'm the mother of a 7-year-old, and I'm also a yoga teacher who travels internationally and who teaches 5 classes a week. When I started really having the symptoms, when my sister crashed, I ended up quitting all of my classes for a while. I had to really slow down. The information and the treatment I was getting from the doctors at the other places I was going was making me sicker. So when they saw that I had a depressed cardiac function, they just threw some pills at me. And so you're really freaked out when you get told that your sister just had a stroke and she's 33 years old and you're 34 years old. And you're told that it's because of a heart problem, and then you're told that you may also have a heart problem, which we later found out has a genetic component. So when I found all this out, I ended up on these pills for about a week that dropped my blood pressure down to 78/55. So effectually, I was like a zombie. I went to the doctor and I had just left work, and they were like, "Oh my God, you went to work today?" Because my blood pressure was so low. And I was like, well, what else am I gonna do? I have to work. Nobody can tell me what's wrong or how to fix it. So yeah, I went to work today, and so they pumped me through a bunch of electrolytes and those sorts of things, water, whatever it is, IV, I guess. And yeah, and it just really felt like limbo for a little bit until I started coming to see Dr. Jacqueline. I had seen other doctors before I came to the Wellness Way. The first one that I saw was the doctor that I saw when I got back from Morocco. He is a functional medicine doctor, and it was someone that I knew. I was just feeling really sick, and my joints were really swollen, and my family, my brother and my mother, are both celiac, so I assumed that perhaps it had something to do with wheat, which I actually found out I'm not allergic to through the test that we do here. And I took that out, and it did help, and he proposed to me like a $7,000 plan that I could pay for over a period of time, and it just felt not quite right. He's the one that actually told me that he thought I had Hashimoto's. We ran one blood test, and it showed like a slightly off thyroid. So I was like, okay, I guess I have a thyroid problem. Also a common thing in my family, a lot of hypothyroidism in my family. So I figured, oh, that makes sense. So much of it seems like it comes with genetics, especially the way that we're taught. We're like, oh, your family had it, so you're gonna have it, and that's just where our brains are. So then I went through that with the summer. I did a lot with CBD, and that helped a little bit as well. And then when my sister went through her stroke and her heart problem, I ended up at the emergency room, which was pretty useless, but it did show in the CT scan that I did have a decreased heart function. So that was pretty scary, and sent me to the cardiologist. The cardiologist I found to be kind of interesting because they just instantly threw these pills at me. I stopped taking them because they dropped my blood pressure so low, and when I came back, I had to mark the form, and they said, well, are you still taking your medication? And I said no. And then my doctor just looked at me, and she goes, well, you know, what can I do for you then? And I said, I don't know. I said, I feel, I know I have this problem, but I think your pills are gonna kill me before my heart does. I can't be functioning at this level. I'll have to quit working. I'll have to do all these things. And she goes, well, that's fine. We actually don't really have any actual concrete proof that this would do anything for this particular level of heart function. And I was kind of like, wait a second, why didn't you tell me that? Like, why didn't you tell me that we're trying to be proactive here? Do you want to take pills and see if it helps? There was never that offer, and it was legitimately a guess. So after that, we ended up running my blood work, finding out I had a really high iron content at the time too, and I do have a gene for that as well. And then we went through more genetic testing and found out that we do have a gene in our family that probably leads to this cardiomyopathy. But again, I just learned with the genetics that it's a lot of guessing. I would say, you know, there was more pressure to take the medication again, and I said, well, do you have any proof? They're like, well, no, this is a super rare condition. And I go, well, then why should I take the medicine? Well, we think it will help. And I said, well, it doesn't work for me, and I'm not gonna take it. And then they kind of looked at me like, well, then you're probably gonna die. And I just didn't feel that way. So I stopped. I do go for an echocardiogram just to check and make sure my heart is not changing in a negative direction, but I feel pretty good about where I'm at right now. It really was a guessing game, and I kind of started to realize I felt like a little bit of a lab rat for them. They were, you know, it was, I think they had great intentions, but really from their lens, there's no solution. They don't know why the heart tissue changes. They don't know why the gene does what it does. And it's interesting to me because the medication that they gave me is for people with high blood pressure, which is what I don't have. I actually have abysmally low blood pressure. And I really felt like it was almost offensive to me that taking these beta blockers and compromising my kidney function was somehow some sort of exchange for better heart health, which they couldn't even guarantee. Yeah, they just said probably genetics, you know. And the other thing that my cardiologist said to me was that they wouldn't actually worry about where my ejection fraction was. That's the amount of blood that your heart pushes through every time that it pumps. They said it was actually fine, except for that you know, it was a bit depressed. So if I were someone without the link to my sister, they would maybe just tell me to just get regular checkups and not treat me at all. So it really felt like throwing darts at a blank board, and everything that they gave me made me feel worse. So not just that, but all the testing, just so much anxiety that goes with the testing. And looking back on that year, I'm really feeling like my stress level and the blow to just my world at the time that my sister got sick, I think it really doubled down on my health and maybe just kind of freeze and probably increased the problem at the time. Was I skeptical or hesitant when I met with Dr. Jacqueline about the Wellness Way approach? Yes and no. So I was skeptical because I was really trying to find the right doctor for this. I already had decided that I wasn't going to do the route that had been proposed to me by my other doctors. But having already run into someone who wanted to charge me $7,000 for something that didn't, it also felt like an empty promise. I was a little bit nervous. What really sold me on the Wellness Way is the testing. I felt like if my body and if my blood results and my test results demonstrated change, that was a clear indication that the process was working. And you know, when you're going through something that you think might kill you, you end up spending a lot of money on stuff that you probably shouldn't spend a lot of money on. Like you'll go to like Mercola.com or you'll go to Dr. Axe and you're like, oh, that's good for hearts, I guess I should buy that. And so I think I spent so much money just getting tested at my doctor, getting, you know, buying nonsense online, juicing, all these like rando internet ideas that I found. And really I wasn't getting better. I didn't have any verification. I didn't have any specific direction for any of it. So it was just really, it was really great to find someone who was like, I'm going to customize something for you. We're going to base it on your actual test results, and then we're going to make sure that it worked. Working with Dr. Jacqueline, she made me feel comfortable right away because the way that she talked about the body made sense to me. She talked about the Swiss watch approach to the body and those parts and pieces coming together. So having gone to the other doctors and being chopped up into specializations and sent to this specialist for that. I mean, I would ask them a question like, well, what about, you know, what will this do to my kidneys? Well, we don't know. We have to send you to this person to answer that question. Or if we find out that you have this, then we'll have to send you here. And I thought that that really was sad that they couldn't speak to any other part than the one part, because again, I know that they all work together. So I really felt like when I sat down with Dr. Jacqueline that she and I shared that understanding of the body, that it's not just one part causing one thing. And it really gave me a lot of optimism towards, I can work on this and I can work on this, and that can also help keep my heart in place. Because when I was talking to the doctors, they really, the whole idea, the beta blockers are just to keep your system from being stressed out, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that without taking drugs. For someone that's skeptical about the Wellness Way approach, I would tell them that it changed my life, and that I think we should be more skeptical of our regular doctors too. You know, we give so much blind trust to this method and this idea that we've all accepted, and we don't really stop to ask ourselves if we're being accountable for our own health and our own choices. So if you're going to take a drug that's going to bottom out your energy level so badly that you might have to switch professions, which is what I was looking at, I don't know if that sacrifice, well, I know it wasn't a sacrifice that I was willing to take. So coming into the Wellness Way, I feel like there was a method. There is, actual facts and science behind it. The test results will come back and verify and prove that for you. And not just that, but I've sent multiple people over to Dr. Jacqueline, and all of us have had different treatment plans, different problems, and all of us have gone through some kind of a life-changing story that now we all tell all of our friends. I think it's just a little bit counterculture. We have a way that we think we're supposed to do health, and I will say I spent a lot of money on websites, on random doctors, on functional medicine doctors, and at first it felt like a lot of money to spend to do a program with the Wellness Way, and I will tell you it's the only money that I'm happy that I spent. It's the only money that really did anything that actually changed my life, and now starting to change my family's life, so I would definitely recommend it. The biggest impact going through the Wellness Way approach in my life is getting my energy back. I am a really fun, ambitious, creative person, and I just felt so defeated for the longest time. I mean, I was napping on the couch for all of Saturdays. I was having a hard time being excited to hang out with my kid. Work felt like miserable, and I just really wanted to feel like myself again. And so once my body started to heal, and that started to really help my stress level go down, knowing that I was getting better, and I started to gain some confidence and understand the signals that my body is giving me. So that's one thing you don't know that you get, is that maybe you didn't know that how bad you were feeling or what way you were feeling. But it's crazy now, because when I eat something that my body doesn't like, I know it, and I just know what to do about that, and I know what fuel makes me feel really good, and I can't think of anything that I've brought to the Wellness Way that there hasn't been some kind of an answer for. So it's just great to have basically like a physician, I guess like a family physician that I can go to and have confidence in, and know that I'm not harming other parts of my body, and just feel really good about my health decisions. When I was going through my individualized plan with the Wellness Way, at first it was like a lot. I mean, it's a big lifestyle change for most people, and I'd say that's one of the things I'm the most happy about now, is that I think it's really hard to make a lifestyle change. And Dr. Jacqueline, I mean, she got a lot of pretty whiny emails from me about how I was feeling and what was going on, and the amazing thing is she was so fast at getting back for that, so I felt like I really had support. But there was a couple times when I was learning how to cook differently, or it took me a while. My family eats a lot the same way that I do now, but when we started, I would have like a go-to thing for them, and then I'd be trying to make something on the side for me. And a couple of times I messed that up, and I would be crying into my green backup smoothie. And it took me a while to learn how to plan my meals, and it took me a while to get used to the taste of the herbs. And then it took me a while to trust that my body was changing. But after my first food allergy test, I had gotten really, really sick on a holiday. And after that holiday, my stomach hurt so bad. There were times where my stomach hurt so bad that I thought maybe I had cancer or something like that. That stabbing pain in your stomach can be really scary. And that happened to me after that holiday. It was Thanksgiving. And comes to find out, I decided to take a allergy test after that. And I was allergic to every single thing that I ate on Thanksgiving. So it's no wonder I got so sick. I took them out in 2 weeks. I felt completely better. I had no stabbing pain in my stomach, and I haven't felt like my pants are tight for a long time. And I really haven't lost that much weight. It's just literally that inflammation in your body. When it goes away, everything fits better, you feel better, and I really think it helps your stress level too. But it takes some getting used to, so it's worth it to go through the plan, so that you can actually make a real change in your habits in your life that you can sustain. How do I feel about the future of my health? I feel so good about it now. I really do. And that feels like a complete 180 from a year and a half ago. I was so sad and depressed and bummed out about how I felt in my body when I came to the Wellness Way, because in my family, when women get to their 30s and their 40s, they usually do start to get sicker and they start to gain weight. And that is the history of our family. If I wanted to, I could just say, well, that makes sense, that's my genetics. But I have never been willing to kind of cave to that. Like, so many times I've gone to my doctors and said, that outcome is not acceptable for me. I'm not going to agree to that. And so I kept looking, and it just feels really good to be supported by someone who sees health the same way that I do. Not to mention there's a whole Wellness Way community. So many of my friends are on this path now, which makes things a little bit easier too. And I think they do a really good job of giving you ideas for meals and social and kids treats, and it's more than just a doctor plan. It's like a group lifestyle commitment where there's a lot of support that you maybe didn't expect. And I feel really great about all the resources I have for my health, the changes we've made in our family, and just the way that I feel right now. So it feels like I might never have to get sick.